Welcome back to another episode of Now Streaming, the show sharing real stories with real people while we go on real adventures. Subscribe to the Now Streaming channel as we try to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the summer during season 1. I can't thank you enough for your support. In this video, Robin and I ventured all the way down to the stunning, serene Louisville, Kentucky. This city is full of energy, life, so much to do, so much to see. But today, most importantly, the home of my good friend, Will Partin. Will is a husband, he is a girl dad, he is a good time, and he is the president of GO Ministries, an international missions organization serving communities in several countries around the world. Will is as real as it gets. I'm so excited for you to get to know him. This is my conversation with Will Partin.
I was going to be out here kayaking anyway this morning, so
you know, this really worked out.
The fact that you're here is helpful.
I couldn't believe that I came to Louisville and I just stumbled upon you, matching boats and everything. This is serendipitous to say the least.
Nice of me to let you borrow my dog too.
Yeah. What's his name again?
Robin.
Robin. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
got it.
As in Batman and Robin.
Oh, so are you the?
Yeah, I'm Batman.
You probably shouldn't say that on camera. Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Now Streaming. Today, I find myself in the stunning Louisville, Kentucky. I've been here for around 24 hours, and I just cannot believe, first of all, the humans that live here. Being from the north and hearing about the hospitality of the south, it is a real thing. I was telling Will, I think I've made friends since I've gotten here. And I don't know if I'll see those people again, but they felt like friends.
It didn't take much for you to do that, though. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Well, I just have ADD. But man, I just can't believe how perfect the weather's been. Will and I have been planning this episode for a month or so. And when you're doing that and you're putting the date out there, you just never know. But wow, it couldn't be a more perfect date. So I'm here today in Louisville, Kentucky on Harrods Creek that drains into the Ohio River. And it is a stunning paddle. I got to get out yesterday and see a little bit more of it. And what's more important than all of that is the company. Mr. Will Partin is the president of GO Ministries. I'm going to let him tell you about all of those things. But first, I just want to say thank you, man, for coming out and taking some time on a Monday and hanging out and going on a little adventure with me.
Man, thanks for the invite. I've known you since you were just a little kiddo. And so being able to hear about what you're doing, spend some time with you, and get out in my own city in a place that I actually don't spend a lot of time is pretty nice. So you've right on. You've given me a gift today. So
and now I'm just a slightly larger kiddo. I am real quick. Your paddles are backwards.
Oh yeah.
So let's turn and then flip them over too.
Oh wow.
Okay, cool.
Told you I don't do this for you.
I'll cut that part out.
No, actually don't. That's amazing. I told you. But if I could shoot a free throw at any point, if you want to do something on the court,
you know what? I avoided that intentionally for my own clout. But if you want to start a show where we shoot, please don't invite me. I will shoot it for you. How about that?
I don't know. It'll be payback for this, for what just happened.
Maybe. The goal is to stay inside the boats today. As always, that is somewhat optional. But man, this is a real honor for me. Like Will said, we've known each other since...
It was actually in the 2000s.
Early 2000s.
I came to visit your hometown and your church, probably in 2002-ish.
Crazy.
Which is wild.
Yeah, that is wild. Okay, so I want to hear about... So today you are El Presidente.
Yeah.
Is that the right way to say that in Spanish?
It is, you nailed it.
Will speaks fluent Spanish. And we're not going to do that today because my Spanish is really terrible. I'm trying, though. I am genuinely trying. But Will, I just want to hear about how you kind of got to this place in life. You were married to Audrey, who is just an incredible human being.
Amen.
You have 3 beautiful daughters. No dog yet, but we're working on that.
And, we have a shared puppy right now.
yeah, a shared puppy, right. But an adorable bunny. What's the bunny's name? Oscar?
Carlos.
Carlos.
Only speaks Spanish, by the way.
Right, of course.
We needed to,
That's awesome. So Will, what I want to hear about is just kind of your journey of how you got to this place.
Sure.
Let's rewind and just tell me a little bit about where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. So, born out west, out in California. My parents are originally from Kentucky, so we moved back here when I was elementary age, 2nd, 3rd grade, around that time. So grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and certainly love it here. Fast forward, to my junior year of high school, really started to have a relationship of my own with Jesus. And actually, my brother went on something called an Emmaus or Christless walk, which is like a 72-hour spiritual enrichment weekend, and really just saw a pretty dramatic transformation in his life. And so it really captivated the attention of our family. So we kind of followed suit. But sports was basically my idol, my hobby. It's where I spent most of my time and my passion. And so when I was going into my senior year of high school, we had a new coach who came in and invited me to go to the Dominican Republic on a mission trip. And really all he told me was, we're going to do a camp for kids, and then we're going to play against local competition at night. And I was in. So really blindly just hopped on a plane and went to the Dominican. And that's where God really planted a seed in my heart for something that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And really the way that I put it now, I borrow this phrase from a friend who's a missionary in Afghanistan, but it was where I was ruined for the ordinary. And that was kind of what happened in my life. I remember coming back to the States after spending 10 days in the DR, called my mom from a payphone in the Miami airport. That ages me a little bit. And I just couldn't speak. And she just said, buddy, we'll talk about it when we get home. And so my heart was just wrecked as a 17-year-old without knowing what was coming in the future. But that's kind of how I got started in missions and my time in the DR. And so fast forward several years later, met my wife in college, and we got married in July of 2005.
Okay.
We moved to the Dominican Republic in September of 2005.
Okay, so married in July, moved in September. What did her dad say to you?
He was, man, he is a quiet, wonderful human being. And his other daughter had just got married about 6 months before.
Okay.
And so I think he was probably experiencing some significant loss. But man, being a man of faith that he is, I know deep down, he and his wife both were pretty excited about what was to come. So, but he had both of his daughters living at home, and then they weren't.
Yeah.
So they were
pretty
gone
quickly, it sounds like.
Pretty quickly. So, so married, and 6 weeks later, we moved to the Dominican and started our life as missionaries with GO Ministries in the DR. And that was, almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
Almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
So we lived in the DR for 14 of those years, and have been back in Louisville now for 5.
I want to hear a little bit about marriage, early marriage.
Sure.
So as you know, you're part of my story, and Tiffany and I's story, as we were engaged while we were on a trip with you in the DR in 2017.
Yeah.
We were married 6 months later.
Yep.
I was not messing around.
I love it.
But I want to hear about what it's like to learn how to be a husband, to learn how to start a family, and to walk through those early years of just living with this other human, but in a foreign country. So at that point, can we start here? Could you speak the language?
No.
Okay.
No, we moved out. I took Latin in high school.
Okay.
And moved down not knowing a little bit of any Spanish. And so there was a lot going on. You know, they kind of make a list of those stressors in your life.
Yeah.
We had a few of them going on during that time. But to be honest with you, I think that's probably a part of our story that is most significant. We feel like God kind of blindfolded us and said, I know what's going to be good for you. You guys don't know how to pursue what's good for you just yet, so I'm gonna teach you along the way. And so it didn't feel like this deep calling into the life of missions. It actually felt like, hey, go stand on the edge. I'm gonna push you over, and I'm gonna show you what's good down there.
Yeah.
And so being married for 6 weeks, man, I'll go back. The greatest gift that my parents gave me was a healthy marriage.
I love that.
There were times where I have an older brother, younger sister, where we would be like, hey, mom and dad, don't forget about us. Remember, we're here too. And looking back now that I'm married and raising kids, I don't think that they could have done anything better for us than to show us that, Christ was the center of their foundation, of their marriage, and then they came first, which I love. And so taking that with us, learning how to make sure that was the most important thing was really helpful, because we did have a lot going on. We had a lot of distractions. We had a lot of things to learn. We had a lot of things that were unfamiliar, being in another culture, another country. But understanding that we had to be for each other and let go of some other things first was really helpful.
I want to hear about this early phase. So was there a time when you guys had made the leap, you're married, you're in the DR, you're slowly picking up the language, where you had a doubt that you both shared, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah. Honest truth, it was the morning after we got there.
Okay, that fast?
Yeah. So basically, like I said, I don't feel like we were responding necessarily to some call that God had placed upon our life. I feel like he was pushing us into a place that we just were unaware of yet. And so we woke up the morning after we got there, and I remember feeling the bed shaking. And we just moved into this little apartment. And I remember thinking, what in the world is that? And I look over and Audrey's crying. And I remember thinking to myself, 6 weeks married, just the reality that, we're responsible now for each other. And thinking, what in the world did we just do? And so we went and sat on this little futon that we had in this tiny little apartment. And we looked down through the windows. The windows kind of flipped open. We looked down at the street, and life was happening in the city of Santiago. And Audrey said, you want to go out there? And I said, no. And I said, do you? She said, no. So we literally sat down on this couch, and then another missionary lived right behind us. There's only 3 missionaries at the time with GO. Came, knocked on our door, and he's like, come on, let me take you to lunch. And I really remember that being like the first bit of just care that we received to say, hey, it's really one step at a time.
Yeah.
And so I remember feeling that way about marriage. I remember feeling that way about adjusting to a new culture. We felt that way about language. And so we really just started putting one foot in front of the other to learn about all of these new things that were coming our way. And so, it didn't take long for us to do the uh-oh moment.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. And there were a few more along the way. There's a significant story that I can tell you about later if you'd like. But it was a time where we decided to stay longer than I thought that we would. And that was pretty powerful because it was Audrey that made the decision. Which I always thought if there was a moment for us to leave, or if I presented the opportunity for her to say, let's pack our bags and go, she would have taken that. But this was a time where she said, man, I spent time in prayer and he's telling us to stay, so we're going to stay.
Wow.
Which was pretty powerful in our marriage.
Man.
So
how did friendship play a role in you guys? Because 14 years is a long time. What role did friendship play in you guys having a life that felt quasi-normal and healthy? And what role did that play, and who were those people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I remember actually telling this to some other missionaries as our organization continued to grow. I remember saying, if you were to line up or tell me to pick 20 people to spend my life with, I'm not so sure that any of those people would have made the cut initially. But it's almost like, I would say, like the military. You quickly become like a band of brothers and sisters because you share a mission. You share the same struggles because you're, coming from a different culture. You can identify with each other. And so it didn't take long for us to realize that these were our people. And I can tell you that we've had a lot of staff come and go over the years, but there's not a single one of them that I wouldn't call and know that they wouldn't show up. For us, and vice versa. So, when you experience, when you celebrate together, when you experience joy together, when you experience heartache together, as you know, your friendship just goes deeper. And, living in the Dominican for 14 years, we experienced all of those things, on a regular basis. And so friendship became very deep, which was important to us. Community is incredibly important. And we had to find a life in the DR that wasn't just centered around our work. So
you met incredible people that you got to work alongside with, serve alongside with. But what about the people that you met that were Dominicans? What did that look like, moving to a place where you don't have a ton in common, or maybe you do, you tell me. And then what do those relationships look like over time? Tell me about some of that.
So it was really important for us to find some common interests. And so actually, my wife and I both, when we moved down there, we both spent some time playing professional basketball. And so that was our way of connecting with people that shared, one common interest, which was the game of basketball. And so we started meeting some of our dearest friends doing that. And then as we learned language, I'll never forget when I felt really comfortable with Spanish is when my own personality could come out in my expressions in my language. And so I can be, I love to play, love to be sarcastic, love to pick, love to really just kind of joke and make light of environments so that people feel comfortable. And so it was probably about a year before I could do that. But that's when I started to feel like my friendships with Dominicans became very raw and real. I remember having real conversations about how people were raised and, what it was like to grow up in the DR and, getting to know their family history and things like that. So the reality is you can't go backwards in your life and connect with Dominicans or people of other cultures because you didn't watch the same cartoons growing up. You probably didn't eat the same foods. You didn't have the same school experience. And so there was a lot of finding ways that you could connect. And so, hey, tell me about your family. Tell me about your heart. Tell me about your dreams, things like that. And so I can remember some very specific friends that were Dominican that came really close to us when we could start to really live life together. But it was all from moving forward, not being able to look backwards to connect.
being there for 14 years, at what point, I'm just trying to fathom this in my own head. How many, I'm assuming years, not months, did it take for you to feel like, hey, this is home?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think there's a couple factors too. One of them kind of goes back to marriage. Audrey and I are wired very similarly in that our physical home is like a place of refuge for us. Mm-hmm. And so when we made our first home the way that we wanted it, then it started to feel like home, because we knew that no matter what chaos or confusion surrounded us outside in the streets of the Dominican, we could come, close that door, and feel like we're home.
Yeah.
And it was home with each other too. The familiarity of marriage and friendship, and our growing love for each other as a married couple was huge as far as becoming a refuge. So I would say that probably took about 18 months to 2 years. We had committed initially to being there for 2 years, but then we quickly realized that in order to have any sort of impact or influence or even put down some roots, it was going to take a lot longer. So probably after a couple years, we moved 3 or 4 different times when we were in the DR, and every time we made it a priority to make our home a refuge.
Yeah.
So, and that was just the two of us being able to do that. And then friendships, making sure that community was at the core of our life is huge. And as we talk about faith and gospel, we know that we were created for community, and so we found that pretty quickly. So.
Yeah. What do you say to somebody who's not a believer, not a Christian,
Yep.
and is hearing from a missionary, from a missions organization? What do you say to them about the importance and of the impact of what you're doing in the Dominican Republic?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of it is really around a philosophy of how you live your life according to the gospel. So even if someone were to say, the gospel, what is that, or what does it really mean? I think a lot of people have experience with Christianity, or they have a narrative of Christianity that comes from a personal experience, whether it be an experience that's been really healthy and good, or one that's been really hurtful and harmful.
Yeah.
We come across that obviously
Sure.
a lot. I do believe that part of what we've been able to do, what we call incarnational ministries, we want to move into the neighborhood and just connect with people and live life with people. And that doesn't mean that you stand on the corner and you scream scripture at people.
Right.
But you develop relationships, and then you develop the opportunity for this, what we call mutual transformation, right? You speak into my life, I speak into your life, because we have so much to be able to learn from each other.
Yeah.
And so creating a different narrative that maybe could help people understand. And sometimes you do that with your words, and a lot of times you just do that with your actions, right? When you live life with people and you love people well, there's a book, I think, called by Michael Frost. It's called Surprise the World. There's a lot of things that the world expects believers to do. But where this book kind of challenges you is, what are you doing that's going to shock the world? What are you doing that actually is something that people don't expect, right? And I think that's where you connect with a lot of people that maybe don't come from the same faith background. Is if you actually truly live the life that Jesus lived, it actually looks a whole lot different than what people have experienced in Christianity, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's not a knock on the church. That's just the reality of our humanness coming out in us, right? And so retelling the narrative of the gospel in a way that is as attractive as what it has been for 2,000 plus years, because you think about it, there's no greater leader in the history of the world than Jesus. However many years later, he's got millions and millions and millions of followers, right? And so when done well, when people understand what the gospel really is and live it out, you have a different experience.
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't have to be, like I said, it doesn't have to be preached with words. A lot of times it's just, meeting people's needs, being there for them in some of the most difficult times of their life, but just showing up, being present in people's lives.
Yeah.
When you read scripture, that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
And, the things that he said were 100% grace and 100% truth all the time. And so learning to do that, I think, creates an opportunity for people to experience the gospel just in a different way.
Something too that I think is an interesting dynamic, when people hear about mission trips, that might be met with a level of skepticism, like,
Sure.
Okay, you're going to go take selfies with people that are in need and come back and look what I did. But my experience, at least, and I've heard this from a lot of others, my sister was just in the DR a handful of months ago, and what is interesting is, we go with these groups with really great intentions to come and to serve and to meet some needs as a part of a larger organism that exists in the area, like GO Ministries.
Right.
We come to be an arm of that for a time, if it's a week or it's 10 days or 2 weeks, whatever it is. And so we go with this mission of, hey, we want to go and we want to pour out and we want to make a positive impact in the world. We want to make a positive impact for the gospel. But what happens instead is that there's a work that's done in us.
Yeah.
There's a restoration that's done in us. There's rest
Yeah.
through the serving that's found in us.
Yeah.
As somebody who's seen these trips come and go over and over again over the years, can you speak to that paradigm?
Yeah. This is really the conversation actually that I live my life with, this one in particular, which has been really helpful. So, kind of going back to our bread and butter at GO Ministries, one of the things we talk about all the time is mutual transformation, right? So you have this idea with missions, like you mentioned, that we go down as North Americans and we're going to help.
Yeah.
And that is very true. There's opportunities to be able to go meet some very practical physical needs. But probably over the last decade, what we've realized is when people go on a mission trip and they come back, they're telling that same story. I went down to do this. Man, I feel like I was impacted so much more.
Yeah.
And so what we started to do was recognize that that was a reality. So we started to talk about, man, what are the strengths of different cultures? What are the strengths of the global church? And what if we actually went down there as learners rather than teachers? And so there's kind of three things that I talk about that happen on a mission trip that are really powerful. And one of them is this idea that there's something outward that happens, right? We are called to go and serve other people. Whether you are, a follower of Jesus or not, people want to help, right? So there's an opportunity to be able to express this outward expression of, I want to go serve other people and help other people. So there's this outward need that's met to go and serve and help. But then there's something powerful that happens too inward, right? There's this perspective that's gained about, you don't really know what may be healthy or unhealthy about your culture until you step outside of it and go into another one, right? And so there's things that you pick up on from leaders and people in other cultures to say, you know what, I wish that my life and my community and my walk looked a little bit more like that. And so you gain perspective on what it looks like to actually, live your life in community or live out your faith in a different way. And so there's an inward impact. There's a transformation that starts to happen, or a perspective that happens in your life. And then there's the upward that I talk about, where you just kind of become in awe of what God's doing all around the world, right? And you don't know unless you see it. You hear stories, or you may see something on TV, or we're all inspired by a movie that tells a story. But when you get your own eyes on that and you experience something and you meet the people that are involved with it, that changes everything.
Yeah.
And so outward, inward, upward, and that's where transformation really happens. And so you do actually meet physical needs, and there are things that get done. But there's some pretty powerful things. Like I said, I was ruined for the ordinary. The things that I was passionate about, the things that meant the world to me, all of a sudden, kind of took a back seat.
Yeah.
And so those are the things too, where people will tell you where your life begins to be shaped and transformed, is when you have those shared experiences where you gain a different perspective. How
many years has it been since you've been with GO?
So we joined GO in 2005. So we just celebrated 19 years.
19 years. So you're coming up on 20 years.
Yep.
So what I want to know now is why? Why have you stayed? Why are you still there? And why have you chosen GO to be a part of your legacy?
Yeah, I think there's several reasons why. Number one, I joined GO when it was a mom and pop ministry, right? There were 3 other missionaries. We were hosting probably 5 teams a year that were coming down on mission trips. So I wasn't there in the founding days of GO, but I've watched GO grow from what it was back then to what it is today. And there's a lot of story behind that. But I think as a young person coming in, I was 24 when I joined GO, and understanding that there was no ceiling. There was there was always hope for something bigger and better if you wanted to pursue it, right? And so one of the things that I love about GO Ministries is we have no shortage of vision. We believe that anything worth doing is something that really, if God shows up to do, then that's what you want to pursue. But if it's something that we could do on our own knowledge or own ability, then we're probably shortchanging what really could happen. And so GO has been a big vision organization for a really long time. And so the beauty of that too is we have permission to risk and fail and recover and learn and try again. And so for someone who was young coming up through the organization, I always wanted to make sure that that was a part of our DNA moving forward, is this is a place where the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
And as I tell the story of GO, you can see that happening. We're moving off the island of Hispaniola, and we're expanding into places like Argentina and Mexico and Colombia, and there's other countries that are interested in what we're doing. And so knowing that I can be a part of an organization that can have a large impact has always been attractive.
Yeah.
And so even in the moments of doubt, I've yet to find something else for me that fits my personality and fits my values that I would want to pursue. And one of those values that is a non-negotiable for me is purpose. If I know that what I'm doing has a deep purpose, then I am in 100%. If it's kind of, you know, a futile attempt to do something that really doesn't matter, then I'm I'm not really in. So it's been a joy to be a part of an organization where the sky's the limit.
I want to zoom out and talk about GO Ministries. So GO Ministries has been around for how many years?
35.
35.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, and so you've seen a lot of that.
Yep.
That's so
seen
cool.
a lot of it. Yep.
So I want to kind of hear just briefly about how GO started.
Sure.
And then I want to talk about kind of current global impact. You touched on that briefly, but I want to go a little deeper. So yeah, so where did it start, and then kind of where have we ended up, and what's next?
Yep. Yeah, so GO Ministries really has a beautiful history, and one of the things that I love about GO is in the 35 years that it's existed, the vision and the mission has not changed, right? So even in shifting of language and trying to make it more pertinent for today, the core of who we are has always been the same. And so, which tells there's proof of that in the history and the story of GO. And so a guy named Brooke Brotzman was a youth pastor up in the Chicagoland area, and he was just kind of tired of youth ministry the way that it was in his area. And so he said, I really want to give youth real life examples and opportunities to be able to serve in powerful ways. And so he started taking mission trips to places like Haiti, which is actually where we started, and then into the Dominican Republic. And so when he started taking students to the Dominican Republic, he met Ramon Gabriel and his wife Tata and their 6 kids. And so they're Dominican, and their story is pretty incredible. They lived in a specific city in the DR and decided to move to a community about an hour and a half away that didn't have a church, didn't have a school, and start to meet the needs of their community. And so one of the things that we talk about at GO Ministries is when you make disciples first, you see the church emerge from there. And so they moved to this community, and rather than saying, hey, we're going to use that initial church plant model, we're going to build a building and start seeing who shows up for Sunday service, they started using what we call access ministries, sports, medical clinics, things like that, to really start meeting the needs. They started a school, so they started giving kids a private Christian education that otherwise wouldn't have it. And so they served an impoverished community, and the church started to emerge from there. And so over the years, what Brooke did is he actually married one of the Gabrielle daughters, Sandra, and the two of them together are just a dynamic couple in ministry. And so their families came together and really launched GO Ministries. And so what that looked like after that was taking short-term mission trips to go down and start partnering together with the Gabrielle family to do global ministry. And so kind of to your point, what you were saying, you've been on several trips. This isn't an opportunity for us to say, hey, come help us do this. This is, hey, can we do ministry together? Yeah. And so for you and our relationship, you and I have a partnership in ministry that will last forever. Yep. It's not something that, Logan came on a trip or the church supports what we do. It's, no, this is what we get to do together as a partnership in ministry. And so that has developed just wonderful relationships over the years. And so as the Gabrielle family continued to do that, more people followed their model and started planting churches. And so we currently serve in 215 communities. So what started with the bold move of one man and his family has turned into 214 church plants. Wow. And really it's just a model of, like we talked about, that incarnational ministry. What does it look like to move into your neighborhood and meet the needs of people and live out the gospel? So that's really the story and the DNA and the history of GO. And to watch it now explode into other countries just is pretty mind-blowing for us.
So mention again the countries that you guys are in. So the home base is still kind of Haiti, DR.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So the home base is on the island of Hispaniola, which obviously includes the Dominican and Haiti. We have a pretty large operation in Santiago, Dominican Republic, which is kind of the north central part of the country. Matter of fact, we're building a facility called the Leadership Development Complex, and we believe that it's a sending ground for the nations, for the world. And so we have had people from different countries that have come and done a 6-month or year-long residency with us, and then they go back to their countries and use that model and start planting churches in their communities. And so the LDC is what we call it, Leadership Development Complex, has really started to take shape. It's a $26 million project. We're about 70% done with it. But really what it does is it gives us access to future leaders, and it's a training and equipping and ascending center for the world. And I remember standing on that plot of property for a long time and casting a vision in front of people, and people thought we were crazy, and at times I thought we were crazy. But kind of going back to what I mentioned about we knew when God laid this upon our heart, if he doesn't show up, we're going to look like fools. Yeah. And so it's been a blast to watch him show up.
That's awesome. So
people that come back, however many years later and see the progress that has been made, it's been a really impactful thing for them and for us. And so it's allowed us to go into places like Argentina, Mexico, Colombia, and there's several other countries right now that we're having conversations with to see if it's a reality for us to start taking in people from all over the world.
So about the Leadership Development Complex, what year did that project start?
So it was probably better part of a decade ago that our staff started just really praying about what was next. Mm-hmm. And we did it out of a need. All of our ministry facilities were either, busting at the seams, or they were being purchased by, the land was being purchased by people, and they were building apartment complexes because the city of Santiago was growing. And so we went out and found land about probably 10 or 12 years ago. And we broke ground in 2017. So it's been a slow process, but man, there's been incredible lessons learned along the way. The government has now started to recognize just kind of the impact that this place can have. And so, we broke ground in 2017, and we still have a little bit more work to do.
So something that's awesome about GO Ministries is their relationship to the communities with sports. And it's something I've seen up close. And like music and like food, the way sports is being used in the DR is a barrier breaker. Mm-hmm. And so I want to hear a little bit about how you observe that over time. I want to hear a little bit about kind of what that looks like in terms of the actual sports you guys play, what that looks like with kids.
Yeah.
So why focus on sports?
Yeah, no, that's good. Well, I think selfishly, when we moved down in 2005, sports has been one of the things that has shaped our lives, mine and Audrey's. And so, when you have a good coach and you have good teammates, man, the things that you learn on and off that court or that field are pretty powerful. And so the Dominican in particular, incredibly competitive, incredibly passionate. The history of baseball alone in the Dominican Republic is really, for a lot of kids, a way that they feel like they can either pitch or swing their way off that island and have an opportunity to play Major League Baseball. And so by nature, you have the attention of the next generation through sports because it's a passion and a dream of theirs to be able to use sports to get them somewhere in life. And so really the reason that sports has been so impactful for us is because you roll a basketball out on a court and kids show up. You get some bats and a glove on a field and kids show up. Get a volleyball net, kids show up. And so it was an opportunity for us to be able to engage in the interests of their culture. And anytime you go into another culture and you want to be able to quote unquote fit in, you have to contextualize what it is that you're doing according to the culture that you're living in. And so sports is just an easy fit. We currently have 1,500 kids that are with us every single day through baseball, basketball, soccer, and volleyball. And they're a part of something that we call our academies. And so what I love about that is it's not just limited to their sports, but kids are in English class, they're in ongoing tutoring, they are in every single one of them is in Bible class. And so there's opportunity just for personal growth and development, because we know, as well as anybody, that only a small percentage of those kids are going to fulfill their dream. And so we want to help them create another dream while enjoying their life in sports. So sports has been an incredible opportunity for us to be able to connect with a culture that loves it.
I just love how barrier breaking, I don't know if that's the way I want to say that, but it does. It's a mode, it's a medium to break barriers and develop friendships, relationships, and have impact.
Right. And with the right coaches, there's an opportunity for mentorship and apprenticeship. And a lot of kids like today here in our culture too come from broken homes. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of them don't have a model for what a father or a mother or a healthy relationship looks like. And so it's just an opportunity for our coaches to also better their lives by being called to something higher, and then influence the next generation.
Right.
And so that's why we call it the Leadership Development Complex. Is we empower local leaders to serve in their communities. That's what we do. And so it's not like us as Americans are going down and we're planting churches and we're coaching. No, the local leaders are. And so just an incredibly powerful model to see people investing in their own communities and their own neighborhoods.
So you mentioned dreams, and I think this is something I'm learning as an adult. I just turned 30. I don't know if I really consider myself an adult yet, but I'm getting there. But what I'm learning is that dreams shift over time.
Yeah.
And that success, that target shifts over time.
Sure.
Impact, the ideas that we have about the impact we can make shift over time. But I think the dreaming part is really, really important. So I want to hear from you. When you were first coming up in the world, what was the dream for Will Partin? Was it to be a pro basketball player? Was it to be a singer? I don't know. Was it to be a model? I don't know.
That would have been an incredible dream for me to be a singer, buddy. They say that you're a bad singer when your mom tells you to stop singing. My mom tells me to stop singing all the time.
Well, at least she's honest.
That's why I love people like you, man. I just want to be able to hear you sing. Dream for me was absolutely centered around, sports. I chose to play basketball later on in my career. I got to actually live out one of my dreams, which is funny. I don't talk about very often, but got to win a state championship here in Kentucky. And I remember going to play college basketball after that, and people talking about, oh, if I could do it all over in high school, I wish we could have this, or I wish we could have that. And I'm like, man, there's nothing I would have done different. And got to live out the dream of a kid in the state of Kentucky through basketball. And so that was pretty incredible. So by nature, I thought, man, I was fully aware that I was 5'11" and 3/4 and about 160 pounds soaking wet, that I probably didn't have a career in the NBA, but I wanted to continue to play as long as I could. But as you said, dreams shift over time. And that trip to the Dominican actually started to shape, that first trip back in 1998 started to shape my dreams in a way that I wasn't aware of. And then I moved into marriage, and because my parents gave me such a great glimpse into what marriage was, I had a dream for marriage. And then, part of our story too that's pretty incredible is we had a dream for a family, and about 5 years in, realized that dream changed too because we couldn't have kids. And so we started to dream a different way, and we have 3 beautiful adopted daughters that has opened up a life for us that we never even imagined. And I remember in our most broken moment, and really I think as a man, as a husband, probably the most broken I've ever been was when my wife was on the floor after hearing that we couldn't have kids, and there was nothing I could do about it. There was no fixing it. There was no tool that could take care of it. There was no pill that could make anything better. And so we came together after grieving and just said, what was the purpose behind us having children anyway? Like at the core, like the root of having children. And after we had grieved them potentially not looking like us or walking like us or running like us or playing the sports that we played, we just said, we want to raise kids to know the Lord. And so we said, well, there's a million avenues to be able to do that through. And so we went the adoption route. My wife is incredibly type A and competitive. So she said, I'm going to fill these documents out as fast as anybody.
Yeah.
And we're going to go get us some kids. And so, anybody that knows the adoption process, it obviously doesn't quite work like that. But we've been blessed with 3 incredible stories. We have relationships with birth moms. It became a new ministry for us as our girls ministered to us, as birth moms ministered to us, and vice versa. My dreams have changed dramatically over the years, which I think anybody could probably share that same sentiment. And so I feel like I'm living it right now. We're living out my dream. Marriage, raising family, being a part of a ministry that has a broad impact. Relationships, it's pretty incredible, and it looks nothing like playing on an NBA roster. So I'm thankful for the way that they've changed. Yeah,
that's incredible. So you talked about your daughters. I want to talk a little bit about fatherhood, but let's say that your girls get a hold of this episode someday.
Yeah.
It's on some deep strange corner of the internet where people just make fun of this guy who is trying to do a talk show in kayaks. And they're like, hey, that's Dad.
First, I'll defend you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're
thank
welcome.
you. I appreciate that. But I want to know, what do you want your daughters to know about your dreams, and what do you hope that teaches them and shows them later in their life as you've lived out yours?
Are we supposed to cry on this podcast?
I can't talk about my kids, or I will.
Oh man, I think it goes back to it's a great question that I, probably should think about more and haven't thought much about. But, a lot of it has to do with their stories. I want my girls to know, I want them to know how valuable they are, how deeply loved they are. My girls in particular, their first life experience was something that could be closely related to rejection, right? And they've all asked those questions.
Wow.
But there's a different story, there's a different narrative, there's a different story that's being told in all of our lives. We all have the things that reside in our hearts, in the deep waters of our hearts, that that are shaped and formed by our life experiences. Mm-hmm. But I believe that there's a different truth that can be told and shared. And so for my girls, I want them to know what the truth is. And so I actually have a tattoo on my body that just says adopted. And I want my girls to know that I too have been adopted into this larger family of God's family, the global church.
Yeah, man.
And so in the times where I feel unwanted or unworthy or lost, I know that the real truth is that's not true.
Yeah.
That I am accepted, that I'm loved, that I'm valued, that I'm adored. No matter what happens in my life, that I belong to something that is more powerful than even what my parents could have given me. And so I want them to know that truth, because I think if we live from that place, our life looks different. Mm-hmm. And so there's a verse actually that's become really close to my heart. It's Proverbs 25. And basically it says the purpose of a person's heart is deep waters. And it takes a person of understanding to draw it out. And so that's become something that I want to surround myself with wise people that can draw out of my deep waters. And it doesn't say that you need to dig into your deep waters, or you need to develop deep waters, or you need to become smarter or more experienced. It said the purpose of a person's heart is already deep waters. So it's already there. And so I want to surround myself with people that can draw that out, and I want to be someone who can do the same for others, right? And in order to be able to do that, you have to reconcile with some deep water stuff.
Yeah.
So, there's the things that happen above the waterline that everybody sees, but the real work is done in the depths of your soul.
Yeah.
And so I want my girls to understand that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing some of those depths. Man, how lucky are those girls to have you as dad?
It's mutual, my friend. Man, they're pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And so it's people talk about adoption as, hey, where would those kids be without you? But it is a two-way street. Yeah. We would have been broken and lost and familyless without having the opportunity to receive a gift from some pretty bold birth moms that made some pretty difficult decisions. So.
Yeah. So being a dad to 3 girls. So I've got a girl and a boy. Mm-hmm. And at this juncture in life, that's it. And that looks like it's going to be it. And if that changes, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But right now, that's where we're at. Are you okay? 4 on 1. 4 on 1.
Whew. I tell you, it makes days like this even more special.
Yeah.
And just the fact that Robin's with us too, just another male presence, is actually pretty nice.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing that.
I think if you get a dog, it's if you get a girl dog, man.
Well, that's why Carlos, our bunny, is pretty huge.
That's important.
We spend a little bit of time just kind of staring
all
at
about
each other.
Balance.
And, holding each
so
other.
Here's a girl dad question, because this is a struggle I'm walking through. How long does it take to get good at the hair? Because my poor sweet baby daughter.
Yeah.
When dad's on hair duty in the morning,
it's tough.
It's
tough.
It's a shameful experience for me, and I'm trying. I really am trying. So, how long does that take?
Well, here's what I'll tell you. It's a labor of love.
Okay.
And my situation is pretty interesting too. I have 3 different types of hair to deal with. Right. I've got Ruby, who is Guatemalan by nature. Right. So she's got the long, beautiful, thick, dark hair. June is like Casper the Ghost with blonde, stringy hair, and then George is African American. So we've got 3 different types of hair. So I've had I thought after one, I thought, okay, here we go, baby, we're ready. And then it was like, nope, got to learn this style. Oh, got to learn this style. So I am on this lifelong journey of learning hair. So I'm hoping that you figure it out a whole lot faster than I do. Because when mom's out of town, the girls look homeless.
See, mom's out of town for some training this week, and so I figured the safest thing to do is to get dad out of town too.
That's a smart
and we're gonna let grandma take care of her.
Yeah. Smart move.
Yeah.
There may be some classes out there that we could take, but
yeah, I've watched some TikToks.
Yep.
A couple of YouTube videos, and yeah, it's a labor of love. That's a good way to put it.
It's a labor of love that lasts a long time. So welcome to the journey, my friend.
So Will, I want to talk about marriage again, coming off kind of talking about being a girl dad and the incredible journey you guys have had to get there. So I've been married 7 years. You've been married for how many?
19 in July.
19 in July.
Yep.
So over double the length of time I've now been married.
That just makes me old, buddy. That's all that means.
Hey, you're seasoned. you're seasoned. So I want to know what you've learned about being a husband and a friend to Audrey.
Yeah.
In the different seasons of your guys' marriage. What's changed? What stayed the same? I guess, so like right now, so Tiffany and I have been married and for, like I said, 7 years, and a lot of things are the same.
Sure.
I married up. I like married straight up.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. And I think part of that, we just have a really great friendship.
Yep.
And that was what came really easy to us.
Yeah.
And when I was trying to choose a wife, when I met Tiffany, that's what made it so obvious to me.
Yeah.
Is that we were just like two peas in a pod.
Yep.
Which is a really cheesy saying, but it's just true. We just, being together was easy.
Yep.
I didn't feel like I had to perform. I didn't feel like I had to be on. It's just us.
Yep.
So now that has remained for us, but looking into the next seasons, I kind of want to know what's coming. So what's stayed the same? What's changed? How's it going?
Yeah, no, that's good. I think
maybe I should be asking Audrey this question, actually.
You probably should. And actually, I should answer this, and then you should ask her sometime tonight and see if we have similar answers.
Absolutely, that's a good idea.
No, actually, I love hearing you talk about your and Tiffany's relationship too, just because the compatibility thing, to be able to be friends and share common interests and is pretty massive, because I think that actually takes away from a lot of potential issues that could arise, right? Because it's like, hey, where do you want to vacation? What do you want to do? How do you want to spend our time? And when the compatibility is there, my goodness, that's a gift, because like you said, you're hanging out with a best friend. And so that has remained the same for Audrey and I. We actually met in a training room in college, because she played college basketball and so did I. And so she was in there getting her feet taped during condition. And that's where we first met. And so we had that commonality of the love of the sport, the love of competition. And then neither one of us is competing for spotlight. That's been really helpful for us. That's something that we have learned about ourselves, is that there's no competition for, the seat. And so I think we just complement each other really well, because we just love being together. Sometimes it's with high adventure, and sometimes it's with doing nothing at all.
Yeah.
And so that hasn't changed. And I think that that's probably what has been the easiest thing for us. I have the privilege of doing a lot of weddings, and I love doing weddings, performing weddings, because, you're reminded of the covenant, you're reminded of the purpose, you're reminded of what you committed to. And I think when I look back at mine and Audrey's life, there's been moments that have defined that, or have reminded me that this is what it looks like to be committed to someone forever. One of them was when we couldn't have kids. There's two directions you can go with that, right?
Yeah.
And thankfully, because of our compatibility and our love for one another, we stayed on track and developed a new dream, as you mentioned. I remember another time my dad was diagnosed with a brain tumor and died about 10 months later. And it was one of the hardest times of my life, but I'll never forget coming home one day and seeing Audrey clean him and picking him up off the floor. So when you continue to move on in marriage and life happens with children and parents and things like that, you see that covenant, resurface. And so the things that haven't changed for us have been just a deep commitment. We've had seasons, obviously, of, difficulty. We don't always see eye to eye, obviously. But I think deep down, we're always reminded that we're for each other.
Yeah.
and that's been huge. We parent very differently. I could sit and do an entire episode on all the things that are different about us as well.
Sure.
But when you're reminded that we're actually for each other, then things can be good. Wirings make a huge difference. She is very much an introvert. I remember many times early in life and ministry where I would get really frustrated because she couldn't wait to get out of a situation and I wanted to close down the event. And there was frustration. And then learning that I don't want her to become more like me, and she doesn't need, and I don't need to become more like her. We need to really love the giftedness that God had given us and the way that we're wired. And once I accepted that, which was a long time for me, I struggled with that. I was kind of a jerk for a long time. Man, things just got good. And then I could celebrate our differences rather than be frustrated with them. And so those are some of those things. I think parenting will probably, I would say for us, was the thing that has put a light on our biggest differences. But going back to the truth of the purpose of parenting has kept us grounded and rooted when we start to get frustrated with each other.
So I was talking to a mutual friend of ours recently, and he was sharing how he learned an important lesson in prioritizing his own marriage from you by observation. And so he was telling me about how you guys spend time together with kids, but also how you prioritize time together without kids. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's probably for selfish ambition, really. When the kids were born, we obviously highly valued like having meals around tables and stuff like that. But we also realized that, and I think I learned this from my parents, that our time together was gonna be pretty important. And so for a long time, until recently, actually, we would feed our kids and then put them to bed, and then Audrey and I would basically have a date almost every night. And so we would, cook food together, watch a movie together, whatever that was. And so part of that was because we needed that from each other. So I'd like to say that it was an intentional move for a strong marriage, but it was probably just out of selfish need, recognizing that, we can debrief together and spend that time and feel and really get filled up. I think the deeper we go into marriage and the older the kids get and the more activities that are out there, we've had to learn to be more intentional because, confession, I get pretty frustrated when we don't have that time together. And I think that she can go longer than I can without having that time, but then she'll hit a wall as well and just kind of say, we need to get away, or we need a dinner, or whatever it is. And so we need to get better about the intentionality of putting things on calendars and things like that, because we both have a deep need to connect.
Yeah.
So that's been the hardest thing as of late in this season, because our girls are 12, 10, and 8, and places to be and things to do, and all of a sudden their schedule dominates.
Sure.
So we have a deep need to connect, and so finding ways to do that is super important. I believe that it's a gift, that it's the closest thing that we have to Christ's relationship with the church.
Yeah.
Right? And so if we're actually going to have any sort of testimony or have an opportunity to be able to influence, you can tell a lot about someone in the way that they treat each other when they're married.
Yep. And
so if things are good and healthy at home, I can guarantee you that things outside the home are going to be good as well. And I tell you what, if you take a look at my life, you can tell when things are not good at home. I'm a disaster everywhere else. There's a practice that some of my friends put into place to where they would actually go sit on the couch in their living room and mom and dad together, and they would have the kids be in the living room, but they weren't welcome on the couch. So they could be in the room, but this was mom and dad's time on the couch. Basically saying, y'all are welcome anywhere you want, but right here, this is mom, dad time. And the reason behind that is you create a felt safety for your kids. When your kids know that mom and dad are good, their confidence, their safety is through the roof. When they're wondering what's going on with mom and dad, really difficult.
Yeah.
So.
And that's what we want. We want to be able to. Well, thank you.
Having a blast.
Yeah, he's having a good time. I wish he could paddle though. He's not very helpful.
That's awesome.
Robin's always stealing the show.
That's right.
It's what it is.
Rightfully so.
Yeah. So I want to pivot, and I want to go back to kind of work life, and I want to talk more specifically about leadership.
Yeah.
Surely there's lots of people that have gone through a journey of starting at an organization and kind of working their way up, and maybe that was their ambition. but I want to hear about your journey of growing into leadership. And so first, I want to know when you and Audrey first went down to the DR. You mentioned that GO Ministries was kind of a mom and pop shop,
Yep.
that it wasn't this large effort yet. So at one point, if any, and this answer might be no, did you have an ambition to go from where you were serving kind of on the ground and into a organizational leadership position? Was that ever kind of on your radar, or did it happen naturally?
Yeah, so it happened naturally, and actually happened out of some difficult circumstances. And so, when we moved down to the island, we were asked to actually launch, sports ministry officially and actually create, a program in what we call a focus area of ministry. And so there were some great leadership opportunities that were there. And like we mentioned, growing up in sports, you have an opportunity to be a leader. I was a point guard, I was a shortstop. There's opportunities to be able to, lead from those spaces. So I had some experience with leadership, but also had some really good failed experience with leadership as well. And so there's a lot to be learned there. When we moved back, so a part of our story, so we did sports ministry in the Dominican for, I would say, probably 12 years. Our last 2 years, I was put in a position by the organization to kind of oversee all areas of ministry on the island. And so having to really learn, about myself and about our people and leadership kind of began then, because I was asked to do something a little bit different from what I was used to. And so the journey began then. But then our youngest daughter was diagnosed with a mild form of cerebral palsy. And so we tried for about 6 months to get her needs met in the Dominican, and unfortunately we couldn't. And so that's what ultimately brought us back to the States. And when I came back to the States, the president at the time and the founder of our organization was kind of looking to kind of transition into a different season of life. And so we just started spending time together, and he started kind of mentoring me and preparing me for a transition time. So I became the vice president of GO. I did that for about a year, and then became the president about 3 years ago. And so it wasn't on my radar. I don't even think it was on his radar. I think it was kind of like we've always had executive coaches and people that have been pouring into us and teaching us leadership principles and things like that. But I don't think it was until recently, probably 4 years ago, that Brooke, the founder of our organization, kind of said, you know what, I think I'd like to leave this in the hands of this person who knows us. He had other people in mind, that we know that it's always going to be God's organization, but someone's got to help steer the ship. And so, that kind of came about probably about 4 years ago, and I've been in this position for 3.
When you moved to the DR, there's probably some level of culture shock. You and Audrey kind of showing up, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and so there's probably some level of culture shock on that end. Is that true?
Yeah, big time.
And how long does that take to overcome in your experience?
Oh, I don't know if it ever fully goes away.
Yeah.
I think it cycles. We kind of talked about this with our staff. About every 9 months, you're reminded that you're not from there.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And so there's, little things that are frustrations. We say it's not the big things that get you, it's the gnats. It's the things that just constantly, when you're not from a place, that drive you crazy, because there are things that are ingrained inside of you with the way that you grew up in your culture that are different. And so you gotta be aware of what those things are. So yeah, it never went away.
So 14 years later, you guys decided to come back to the States.
Yep.
Did you experience a level, and of course you'd taken time intermittently to come back, and of course you have family here, but did you experience any of that on the flip side, coming back to the States? Was that a hard transition to come out of, saying like, hey, that season is a huge part of us, but it's not the future? What is that like?
Yeah, there were a lot of things. I think, first off, emotionally and mentally, Audrey and I had to seek deep counsel. We partnered with a place called the Blessing Ranch, which does incredible work with counseling intensives. And so we spent a week in Florida just really diving into the reality of us grieving a life that was not going to be anymore. And so in doing that, we had to be given tools on how to adjust to what we thought was forever, that very obviously and very rapidly wasn't going to be forever. And so we had to seek deep counsel and how to adjust back. And then, we moved down there basically as young adults, right? And so I feel like we had mastered a life in the DR, so to speak, with regards to how things work. Well, coming back to the States, I was the dumbest 40-year-old with a wife and 3 kids you'd ever met. And I remember this is ridiculous, but we rented a house when we first moved back, and I called my brother and I was like, what do you do with your trash? I mean, literally, rented a house, there was no trash can. I didn't realize you had to call a company, tell them that you're a new resident, get a trash can, because that wasn't the case in the DR. And so anyway, simple, silly things that had just become normal for us weren't so normal anymore. And so it was a large adjustment period for us. And then emotionally too, there were things that we loved about the culture of the DR. And I would also say the culture of the church in the DR that's very different from here. And so not to be angry, learning how to not be angry or bitter about our own culture, and not to be arrogant about some things that we had learned that we thought were better. There's a lot of stuff that we had to figure out, and probably still are.
What changed about you? What had to change about you from the position you were in with GO into the transition into leading GO?
Yeah.
What were things about you that you had to put under the microscope and shift?
Yeah, that's good. I think, when you look at leadership principles, some of the greatest leaders are ones that are building stages for other people to stand on. And when I stepped into this position, understanding that there was an organization all of a sudden that I'm supposed to lead, I became very insecure, super insecure. Because I thought, who in the world am I to be able to, number one, step into the shoes of someone who founded this thing, who it's been his entire life. So I had to learn how to honor him. And then I had to learn how to be incredibly humble and understand the things that I'm not aware of and I don't know, and then really ask for help, right? I think that when you're in other positions of leadership that may not be the quote unquote the seat, so to speak, you can get away with some, pretending like you might know something and making some mistakes. And I think that what I've learned over the past few years is I can still be forgiven for making mistakes, but I need to do some serious asking for help and building a team around us that can do the things that I'm not good at, so that we can really lead from a bench rather than a seat, right? And so we have a team of people that leads this organization. I don't do it alone. But the weight of the organization does fall on somebody, ultimately. And so I had to really take a look at the things that were my strengths and the things that were my weaknesses, and be willing to either empower other people to fill in the gaps where I'm really weak, and then be confident in the giftedness that God had given me in some of those strengths, and not shy away from them, and then also not try to be someone else. I can only be who God's created me to be.
Right.
Right? And so it was okay to actually say, when someone asked me a question, I have no idea how to do that, but I'll find out someone, or I'll find someone who does.
But I'll figure it out. Yeah.
And so, I've been a part of a leadership cohort for 2.5 years, and I've learned some things that have shaped my life forever. And the reason that I love it so much is it's not, the phrase of this leadership cohort is, leaders don't drive results, they steward environments that produce fruit. And so rather than always being about a bottom line, what kind of environments are we creating that can produce the fruit that you want for your organization? And so all of it has to do with dealing with the deep water and leading from the deep water issues within your life. You got to reconcile those things, because no matter what, you're dealing with people. You're leading with people, and they're your greatest assets. And so how do you treat your people? What kind of culture do you want?
Awesome. Okay, so I want to kind of close this chapter of our conversation on leadership with this question, because I find myself, I just recently went through a year-long leadership cohort, and I find myself around a lot of young leaders that are kind of not inheriting, but working their way into jobs that we didn't have when we were in our 20s. In an organization as large as GO's is now, I can imagine leadership replication is a really important piece of the puzzle, a part of the mission. And that sounds like that's how you got to where you are, is that people poured into you and it was just a natural fit, and you stepped up to that call. So what are things that you look for in people that you're trying to raise as leaders to do ministry? And there's such a weight to that question too. I don't want to underscore that, because when you're asking somebody to perform a job like what you guys do internationally, there's an incredible amount of responsibility, safety concerns. The list goes on. So when you're choosing people to fit these roles, what are attributes that you're looking for? And what are identifiers that you've maybe seen a pattern of over time?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. You know, there was a season in our ministry when we were growing where we tried to hire talent, and it never worked for what we do, right? And I'm not saying that that's not the case for any organization that's out there, because there's a skill set, right? You have to have really good practitioners in whatever the job is, right? There's something that you have to possess in order to do something. But I will tell you, when you're talking about developing leaders, man, the character piece, and not only that, but how well does someone know themselves, right? Yeah. Because if you're gonna replicate or reproduce leaders, or in our world, if you're gonna make disciples that make disciples, what are you reproducing? And you know, emotional intelligence is something that's a buzzword right now, but I do believe that there's incredible importance in emotional intelligence. You have to be able to find people that really can be in any situation and not let the environment or the surroundings change who they are.
Yeah.
And so for us, there's something right now that I'm walking through over the past couple of years, and it's in the form of an iceberg. And really what it is everything above the waterline, and there's 5 dimensions involved, and everything above the waterline is considered the D1, the first dimension, and that's your skills. That's what the world sees, right? So someone can come and they can say, well, tell me about Logan. Well, Logan is incredibly relational. You know, he has an incredible skill set in these areas of creativity. You know, he loves the outdoors. He's an incredible husband, an incredible father, and that's what everybody sees. But what you just shared with me about your life, that's the stuff that's underneath the waterline. And the things that are underneath the waterline actually drive your performance, right? And so there's 5 dimensions inside this iceberg that we talk about in leadership. And the first one is above the waterline, like I said, the performance piece, the skill sets. And then right underneath that is relationships. And how you gain access to discover how you relate to the world is you have to become aware. How many people do you know that are out there that are fully unaware of how they interact with people,
sure,
or how they affect a room when they walk into it or when they leave it? So the awareness of how you relate to the world is important. Then right underneath that, the third dimension is you. Are you aware of how you were formed? You know, people talk about father wounds or tough upbringings or incredible upbringings, but that's where you gain your worldview and your perspective on life. And so are you aware of, or do you have access to your formation? And one of the ways that you actually access that part of you is through emotions. Emotions are just things that give you information about yourself.
Yeah.
So there was a time in my life where I had anger just always bubbling under the surface. And so when my kids wouldn't do what I wanted them to do, or the house wasn't the way that I thought it should be, I would explode. Well, I was the one who was acting like a child, right? I had these expectations and I had this formation inside of me that caused me to believe that if someone didn't do what I wanted them to do, then I should be frustrated. Well, that was ridiculous. I had to become aware that that's the way that I was living. And so, and then the bottom 2 dimensions are really powerful ones. There's the D4, the 4th dimension is spiritual. And that's when you become aware that there's something bigger than you that's out there.
Yeah.
And you start to reconcile the fact that life isn't just about you and your desires and your needs and your formation, but it's actually about something bigger, that you're part of something larger.
Right.
And then the 5th one is the most difficult. That's where you're just completely undone. That's where God does his greatest work. And so just referring back to not being able to have children, or the time that my dad died, those are the 2 times in my life where I was completely undone, because I had to say, Lord, I have no other tools in my tool belt. There's nothing I can do about any of this. And so I am all yours. You do what you want to do, because I got 0 answers.
Yeah.
And if you were to ask me what the 2 most powerful times in my life are, those 2 moments. And so what does it look like for a leader to live in the space of the undone?
Yeah.
Which is in direct contradiction with what the world will tell you about a leader. A leader has to have everything figured out, has to have all the answers, has to perform better than everybody else. But powerful leadership comes from that 5th dimension of being undone and willing to do whatever it is that's placed before you.
Yeah.
And so that's my journey with leadership right now, is that I look for people that, if they're not currently aware of who they are they willing to dig and find out who they are? Because when the crap hits the fan, the deep water stuff is the person that's going to come out.
Yeah.
And if you're healthy in those areas, you're going to be a really good leader, no matter what your skill set is. So So that's kind of where we're spending our time on our leadership development and identifying
I love that.
who can do it.
I love that. And I think it is somewhat countercultural because a lot of what we see is these achievers.
Yep.
People that achieve on a high level,
Yep.
that think on a high level, that perform on a high level,
Yep.
that sacrifice on a high level. And in our culture, that's what we've championed.
Yep.
But instead of that, flipping that, valuing self-worth, self-knowing, emotional intelligence, a learning mentality, a growth mentality. Oh, that's really great stuff.
So it is a different deal. And you can vouch for this too, but the people, we've all been applauded for our achievements, right? Like everybody loves to say, first one in the office, last one to leave.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, marriage sucks, right? Or they've lost something in their life because they've sacrificed. And there are times where you do sacrifice something for the sake of moving your organization forward, right?
Yep.
But if you let that person inside of you lead all the time, you're gonna crash and burn, dude. And we've seen it over and over and over and over again. And research will tell you that those leaders don't last. They may be geniuses, they may have something that they've created, that is really helping shape the world, but their lives, their personal lives, suffer.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for long-term leaders and not momentary people that can, meet the bottom line.
Right. Thanks for giving me a peek behind the curtain. As a younger professional, that's such a boring term, but somebody that's growing in their life and their career, I'm always curious to hear from leaders how they're developing others as I develop. So thanks for giving me a look behind the curtain. Man, today has been absolutely awesome. This weather could not have been any better. Louisville, you are wooing my heart.
Come on, baby.
It's a real problem for me today. But this has been a lovely, lovely day with a good friend. But we're not done yet.
No.
Are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh, there's lightning.
There's a lightning round.
Let me just say first too, thank you for the invite today. It's an honor to get to spend some time with you, and I love what you're doing, love who you are, and always have, and I've always been able to see some pretty incredible things, even in little Logan. And so to see you live it out as a father and as a husband, and someone who is using their skill sets and the wirings that God's given you, that's really sweet to be a part of. So thanks for today. Well,
it's fully my pleasure. When it came down to making a list of people that I want to talk to, it took no time for you to make the list. So thank you for saying yes.
Plus, I live in Louisville. That's helpful.
I was going to say that, but yeah, it does help a little bit. So thanks for the quick yes, and this has been a blast. So the last part of every episode is the lightning round of questions. Some of them frivolous, some of them deep.
Yes.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Audrey's not here. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Oh, celebrity crush. Oh my gosh, celebrity crush. Like when I was younger.
Yeah.
Here's what I can tell you.
Don't tell me now. I don't want to know now.
The most impactful one, which is weird, that I can remember. No, you know what? Let me go back. Sorry, this isn't lightning round. I'm not very good at it. Shania Twain.
Shania Twain.
Shania Twain.
Wow. Okay. Strong choice?
Yep.
Strong choice.
Loved her.
Man, I feel like a woman.
Loved her.
That's a good first choice. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Tea. How do you take it?
With a little bit of honey.
Okay. Are we talking black tea, green tea?
I like what's in it? It's like a ginger tea.
Okay, ginger tea.
Uh-huh.
Okay, very good.
I know that sounds really pathetic, but I've never been able to do coffee.
Okay.
So
okay. Okay, we could get into that, but Dominican coffee's insane.
I know. It's embarrassing.
It's so good. And the way they make it, okay.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm actually pissed you asked me that question because it makes me sound like a total sissy.
You kind of, yeah. No, I'm actually a tea person now too.
Okay.
Maybe not ginger. Ginger tea. That's cute. No, that's great. Ginger tea is very good.
But I love bourbon.
Yeah. Irish tea. Okay,
right.
now we're talking. Will, where can you get the best pizza?
In Louisville?
Period. Where's the best pizza? This is a hot take. I need you to take a stance.
Dude, this is another embarrassing question. I can't eat pizza. I know. You need to remove that from your getting out of the boat.
He doesn't eat pizza.
Well, it doesn't do well for everybody else around me.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay. So
I know.
At least there's a good
pathetic.
reason.
Like, please keep that off of the podcast.
No, we're airing that.
No, that's not going to be aired.
Okay. If you had a lightsaber, like from Star Wars, what color would it be?
Blue.
Blue. Okay, that was a quick answer. Why?
It's It's my favorite color.
Okay, it's my favorite color.
Is it? Oh, that's sweet.
That's sweet. Okay, very good.
You want to have some tea together?
You know what? I actually brought some great loose. Anyway, this is getting pathetic. You're right. Best family vacation.
From my childhood?
Childhood.
Or
Yes, childhood.
childhood vacation, best one was probably Disneyland. I love going to Disneyland with our family. It's
Okay.
outstanding.
Fantastic. Disneyland, not Disney World.
Nope, Disneyland. We're out in California.
I want to make sure that we know the difference. Yeah.
Disneyland. Yep.
If you lived, see, this is probably an easy question, but if you lived in a country outside of the U.S., which country would it be?
Right now, I just spent some time in Argentina. And so if you were to say, hey, go spend a year somewhere, it'd be there.
Okay, Argentina.
Yep. Argentina.
What is the best thing about Argentina?
Best thing about Argentina right now would be just the people. I am fascinated with being in a Spanish-speaking culture that has a deep European influence.
Okay.
It's totally different from my experience in the DR.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Argentina. Okay, last two questions. Will, how do you find rest?
If I could put myself in the middle of the mountains, either by myself for a few days, I put on worship, I smoke a cigar, and I journal. And the close second is if I'm in the mountains doing the same thing with my wife.
It seems like things are getting worse, not better. There's a lot of challenges domestically, globally. What gives you hope?
What honestly brings me hope, and I have this conversation with a lot of people, is everything you just mentioned actually doesn't matter to me. It doesn't change the mission, right? Who the president is, what policies come and go. If you look throughout the history of the world, there's only one king on the throne.
Yep.
And he always will be.
Come on.
And at the end of the day, no matter what happens in our life, be it tragic or incredible, doesn't matter. There's only one king on the throne that belongs there. I passed the Sunday school question.
Yeah, this wasn't a test. Man, Will Partin, President of GO Ministries. Here we are today in Louisville, Kentucky, paddling Harrods Creek. I think I've seen 3,000 turtles, some interesting colored birds. I think I'm colorblind. But man, just couldn't have been a better morning. This is why Now Streaming exists. This is the goal, is to get out, to get real, and have an adventure. Will, thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. It's always a joy to have you here.